here. Today, I'm going to be covering the gamification engagement model with you all. How can we design culture programs that people actually participate in and that actually last long term? My name is David. I've been a solutions consultant. I recognize for over 6 years now, helping companies do exactly that, implement high impact gamified recognition and rewards programs. Enough about me. So most culture programs tend to look pretty great on paper, right? But quite often, unfortunately, fail in execution. Today, I want to focus on moving away from culture by decree, where we hope we kind of magically get a great recognition and engagement program, toward what actually works, which is culture by intentional design. And on that note, I want to talk about the usage cliff. This might be something many of you have unfortunately encountered. Biggest threat to a new initiative isn't bad ideas. Ideas are usually pretty good. It's lack of focus and visibility. Most programs will experience a launch spike and then a collapse in interest. Reality is that about 70% of organizational change programs fail due to employee disinterest and or lack of management support. But I'd love to hear from you all. Ru, if you could pull up our first poll question. What's the number one reason your team's engagement has plateaued? Lack of manager buy-in, programs feel gimmicky, remote or hybrid visibility issues, where we simply don't have a program yet. A lot of lack of manager buy-in I'm seeing here. Followed by we don't have a program yet. Very closely followed by programs that feel gimmicky. So lack of manager buy-in. We don't have a formal program yet. Programs feel gimmicky. And then lastly, remote and hybrid issues. We're going to jump into all of these. So on the remote hybrid note, this is one of the things that, of course, makes engagement difficult, the nature of distributed workforces, right? In an office, I'll see you stay late to help appear. But in a remote world, that act is invisible. It's not going to happen automatically. Without the intentional visibility into what people are doing, employees are going to feel like that extra effort doesn't matter. And so it's really important for us to formalize bringing visibility to those efforts in a way that mimics that environment that we had when everyone was in the same room. Thanks, Sinead, for that insight. We have a semblance of a program, but with a corporate support center that supports our field remote, it makes for a quick challenge. Yeah. All right. So how do we eliminate that friction? Engaging with and recognizing colleagues, it has to be very easy to do. This is a prerequisite, absolutely. If it takes 5 clicks to say thank you, busy employees won't do it. And high performers are always busy. It has to be just as easy for someone at a desk as for someone out at a plant or out in the field. It's just not realistic to expect someone to remember to recognize a peer at 5 p.m. for something they did at 9 p.m., right? We have to lower the friction to the point where participation becomes the path of least resistance and not the exception. Not a program that people remember once a year when they get their work anniversary email, but that they're thinking of and that is in front of them every day. Now, I want to talk about how we can create an engagement loop. But first, I'd love to ask another question to the group. If you can pull up that next question, Ruth. What percentage of employees are participate in your current or past recognition programs? Let me see if I can share this afterwards. All right, we have in the lead 30 to 60%, and followed by we don't have a recognition program. And then lastly, at 14% or so, 60 to 90%. Mm. Liz says we had an active program, 90% plus participation, but switch platforms saw a huge drop off, now about 15 to 20%. What do you think the main reason for that was, Liz? Too many clicks to recognize employees. Yep. So here we have at 55%, 30 to 60% of employees are recognized. With a 32%, we don't have a recognition program. And then 13% at 60 to 90%. That 90% number Liz shares is a great goal to have. It's definitely achievable with the right low friction program. Gina, I'd love to get some information on recognition program for a small company, 55 employees. Absolutely. A great thing about all these strategies that they do apply to companies of all sizes. So, for example, here we have our hooked model applied to culture, which I really like. Tried and proven model. This is what I'm referring to as the engagement loop. And so we have four different stages. We have a trigger, we have an action, we have a variable reward, and we have an investment. So let's say you want to incentivize staff to complete a training in a week instead of 3 months. So great, let's create a challenge. Let's announce it to staff. That's going to be your trigger. And then an employee completes that training. That's the action. Then they receive points and a reward. And then we have an investment made in both the individual and in the company. Once we close this loop, participation is self-sustaining and compounding. We can use this model to very effectively lead to improvements and create habits in any and all areas that we want. And that can be company-wide and also departmental and more granular as well. And I'll get more into that granularity as well as we dive into some other areas here. But first things first, we have the trigger. How do we prompt the initial actions? How do we get things going in the first place? So we do need an external trigger at first, and that's a nudge, a message. And within teams, for example, we need to be reaching people within their workflow. Where are they already? And reach them there. Over time, this is going to become an internal trigger where the employee automatically looks for reasons to recognize peers. This takes some time, but when we do get to that point, it's amazing because it means that prompt has become a habit, which is our goal. Back to removing friction. Simplicity, it's just absolutely crucial for consistent, regular engagement. A quick recognition with a one sentence note is going to be more effective than a long nomination form. If someone can't recognize someone else in a few minutes between meetings, it means that process is too long. It's not going to have high adoption. That process has to be designed with 30 seconds or less in mind. When we reduce the steps in a participation process, it can increase completion rates by up to 200%. Kind of hard to overstate how effective it is. The difference is when you have a complex process and a simple one. One thing we see sometimes is recognition processes that have 4 levels of approval, for example. That's not real-time recognition. That might be more suitable to something that's quarterly or annually. And because of that, it just doesn't work to create real-time momentum into recognition and into what everyone's doing. So simplicity is definitely a prerequisite for success here. Rewards. So how do we keep things interesting when we're looking at actually rewarding staff? When rewards are predictable, they become expected compensation, right? It becomes the new baseline for that employee. Remember, many years ago, I worked in a restaurant and we made an exception to a rule one time. Well, for everyone that came there for the first time on that day, they expected that same exact thing the next time they came. So we didn't create happy customers. We created disappointed future customers because that was the baseline for their experience. When rewards are variable, they attract far more attention. It keeps things interesting. We're able to drive desired behaviors by delivering meaningful recognition experiences. It means it's not the exact same thing every time. We're able to keep employees in the loop this way because recognition and rewards are constantly evolving. You might say, well, what if we have different goals and score? That's great. That's going to keep people involved. They're going to stay connected because they want to see what excellence looks like next month, next quarter, and then go after that. Go after those goals and then be elevated for achieving them. So when we talk about gamification, some people can see it as gimmicky. Sometimes it is. But when we talk about it, we're talking about real behavioral mechanics rooted in psychology. Points are not just for fun when they're used right. They're a standardized, clear way of telling an employee this behavior was valuable to the organization. It's meaningful, it's consistent and transparent, since it's clear to employees which actions earn which rewards and accolades. And of course, it's visible. There's company-wide acknowledgement of that team members' contributions, and then it's recorded for future reference. And so we're effectively building a portfolio of accomplishments for all employees in real time with no need to look back at a quarter or a year and try to magically remember everything exceptional that they've done. Great way that we have to use points is going to be attaching them to challenges. Challenges allow us to direct energy towards specific business needs. That can be safety, compliance, that could be innovation, that could be cross-departmental collaboration, any and everything that you want to shine a spotlight on. Challenges create clear alignment between individual actions and goals and organizational outcomes, which without these, oftentimes those connections aren't there. With them, it makes culture strategic and purposeful. Brew, could we pull up our next question for the group here? Interested in seeing what your all's thoughts are here. How long does it take to develop a new habit? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, or 9 weeks? We have 3 weeks in the lead at 40%. That was my guess too, Janae. I don't know where I got that from. I don't think it was from Oprah, but that was my guess as well. Okay. And then very close behind, we have 5 weeks at 35%. 20% think 9 weeks, and 7% think 2 weeks. That's the standard, perhaps 21 days. I wonder if it was a standard pre or post Oprah saying it. Okay. So most folks think either 3 weeks or 5 weeks. Well, according to the European Journal of Social Psychology, it takes an average of 66 days, 9 weeks to form a habit. So how can we incorporate that to our programs? Well, when we think of consistency, we can think of streaks. And streaks encourage small weekly actions, one step at a time, that eventually bake recognition into the company DNA. It's important to reward, again, consistency over heroics, consistency over large one-time things. And in doing so, we build a natural momentum that leads to long-term habits. Hannah, go ahead. So you have a question. Go ahead and put it in the chat if you like. Oh, no worries. No worries. I do that as well sometimes. So how do we keep building those habits? Well, let's look at badges. What's the use of badges in recognition and engagement programs and in culture building? They're extremely effective, necessary even, and we could really have a whole session on this alone. So badges, they act as social identifiers. When an employee earns an innovator badge, for example, they're not just getting points, they're building their professional identity. They're showing others what they've achieved and what the company values most. These are extremely effective for onboarding as well, especially at fast growing companies, because new hires are going to quickly internalize their company's core values and key behaviors in a way that's natural and automatic and peer confirmed, right? Actually, would be curious to know how many of y'all have tried using badges in any of your recognition efforts. If you want to put that in the chat. Digital badges, physical badges. Not yet. All right. Have you guys used some digital badges before? Yeah, these are um, super, can be super creative and super fun. And it's just another way that we can keep adapting our program over time and highlighting what's important. I would love to talk, get into more detail with y'all. I have some experience with that in some one-on-one sessions. I'm curious to see what y'all are doing with the digital, with those digital badges. You can use movie characters that have similar personalities to the badge you are giving. Yeah, definitely. You can throw some gifts in there. Very cool. Yeah. Being meaningful doesn't mean it's not fun. It should absolutely still be fun. We're using pins, old school, for some recognition. Same concept, right? These are identifiers of some sort to attach a meaning to these recognitions. Awesome. Happy to see y'all. A lot of y'all are using this concept already. Wanted to look at leaderboards and Hall of Fame for a moment here. And so when we look at both of these, we're looking at two other strong psychological motivators in our gamification approach: competition and prestige. And so leaderboards provide healthy competition, real time, constant, while a Hall of Fame provides long term prestige. Both appeal to the human desire for status, but prestige outlasts competition as a motivator, as it's more permanent, setting long-term benchmarks of excellence there. Combined, however, they become very powerful in driving long-term engagement. Moving on to managers. Managers are the most powerful force multiplier for a successful culture program, but they can also be the biggest blocker, right? So, how do we empower them? Well, managers are tired. Just saying be better at culture building doesn't quite work. We need to give them tools that make culture part of their everyday work life. And that means embedding those tools within the apps they already use every day. Simplicity again. This is crucial since managers account for 70% of the variance in team engagement scores, a huge amount. Manager focus has to be top priority as it's just not feasible to realistically expect to achieve long-term engagement without empowering managers to be culture champions. So what are some ways we can work on that? How do we build routine? Something that we have called the 5 minute Friday. It's a simple, effective tactic that every manager can do. One prompt at the end of the week in Teams or Slack with a goal related question. Managers then recognize three colleagues who made a relevant impact related to that prompt. This is a simple, low lift action that will steadily build recognition habits in a way that's feasible, that keeps the team connected, but doesn't add to their workload. Remember about consistency, not one off grand gestures. I think this is a good time to ask our next question to the group brew. Which gamification element are you most skeptical about? Leaderboards, points, challenges, or none? We have some close competition here. 25% challenges, 21% leaderboards, and points. Curious, for those that said challenges, why was that your choice? Yes, Ricardo will be sharing the slide deck. Or also for those that chose leaderboards, points, why is that the aspect you're most skeptical about? The challenges, Mallory, are divisive? Yeah, leaderboards. Yeah. Okay. Hmm. Mike, it's a practical concern, monetary value. We need to make sure that the cost is controlled. Totally makes sense. Yeah, Alex saying leaderboards can work well in sales teams. They can cause feeling unfairness depending on the use case. Totally. The leaderboards are really going to be case by case. Sales team typically a bit more competitive, and so it can be really positive. But it's going to depend on the context. A great going back to the leaderboards on Hall of Fame. Hall of Fames are great because we get to focus on the substance of all those recognitions. In other words, the values that people are earning, and a little less on the competition side. Nicole is saying, I think keeping challenges fresh, innovate regularly is going to be difficult. It can be hard to get creative. That's a strong point. Mm-hmm. The great thing about challenges is that you don't have to keep thinking of ones for the whole company, right? They can be as granular as possible related to a department, a team. And whatever is in focus at that point, just like a recognition, it shouldn't be really hard to think of it. If someone hasn't gone above and beyond that day, that's all right. Just like with the challenges, well, what's in most focus for us? Let's create challenges according to it. Um, Being granular can be very useful because the more granular we are with recognitions and challenges, the higher we're going to score on employees feeling that sense of belonging internally. I want to get back to visibility here. So visibility, of course, are a crucial ingredient here for effective gamification and long-term engagement. With a public recognition newsfeed, it's really a key element in creating social proof and positive momentum. Because when employees see others being recognized, it's going to drive them to participate as well. My work matters. I'm going to be celebrated for it. How many people and how many companies can say that? It's going to be, unfortunately, probably a relatively small percentage unless we have something like this in place. Um, that work immediately paying off by that employee being elevated for the company to see. So when we establish this, we have a self-scaling system in which each recognition has that compounding effect in generating more and more activity. We're building recognition habits and we're also driving behaviors focused on company values due to the substance of what these recognitions are about. And just like with anything that we're serious about implementing at our organization, we have to track impact. Sometimes we work with companies that have recognition programs that have what seems like decent engagement, but they don't last because someone new will come on board and ask, well, what's the impact of X amount of time and X amount of money? And there's nothing that they can show. Um, we wouldn't do that with another key initiative at the company. We shouldn't do it with this. We need to be able to show what's actually happening. And we can start with measuring adoption, right? So, what are some adoption metrics that we can track? We can track how many people are active in that recognition loop every month, whether employees are giving as well as receiving recognition, and the consistency of recognition activity we see from each team member. With these metrics, we're able to know that we've built a self-sustaining system. So already a huge win. Now let's consider the business impact of all this engagement efforts and all of this adoption. Employees don't leave companies. They leave environments where they feel invisible. Organizations with effective recognition programs experience 31% lower voluntary turnover on average. Voluntary being key there, 31% lower voluntary turnover on average. A visible recognition model that ensures every employee is seen is going to help us get there. So when a team member feels appreciated by their manager, when they feel valued by their organization, and they feel a high sense of belonging, they're going to stay. That's going to be your recognition trifecta right there, those three questions. Retention trifecta. I think I said recognition trifecta. And what's the performance outcome that we can look at here? Well, when engagement goes up, so does output, right? Recognition is a force multiplier as we see happy employees delivering 13% higher productivity in the workplace on average. We've all seen an engaged team member that delivers 2 or 3 times as much as a disengaged team member. This can seem self-evident, but we can and should quantify this to prove the impact of our recognition efforts. Once we have that adoption, we need to quantify what is accomplishing. If you look at your employee counts and just calculate an increase in productivity of even a few percentage points, you'll be quite surprised by the numbers that you come up with. So, in conclusion, Engagement does not and will not happen by accident. If we want a culture people actually participating consistently over the long term, we have to design for it. It needs to be intentional, just like every other important initiative we embark on as companies. And that's how we build habits aligned with positive culture and drive real impact. And with that, I'd love to open the floor to questions. Y'all can feel free to put those in the chat. I like that suggestion of team challenges and team leaderboards, by the way. Very cool. Jacob asks, can Slack be used to apply badges? Uh, Slack can definitely be used to share recognitions that we attach to recognition badges, and that will be visible for everyone to see, whether in a recognition channel. There's different ways to do that, right? You could have a general channel, you can put badges in there, recognitions in there, or you could have a recognition channel. But either way, we can definitely bring that within that Slack workflow. And Slack integration. Yeah, very straightforward. The good thing with Slack is that once you've used it for a bit, the shorthand commands are going to be very straightforward. With recognize, it's going to be /recognize, and you go ahead and send a recognition and shows up right in Slack. Have you never used coins? Are we talking the idea of actually giving out physical coins or medallions for people to wear? How does that land usually? You could. We like to incorporate physical components to folks' engagement programs specifically when they have frontline workers, but you could do that. Digital or physical, the concept is more so that when we have these badges or these pins, that they're identifiers. They are show what someone's accomplished. They are worn with pride, whether that's digitally or physically. But we do love to incorporate some physical components when we can for people that aren't as digitally connected as others, which are normally a lot of our frontline folks. Oh, that's right. Alex is sharing. We have a customer that makes pins from their badges. You can check that out there. My clients are quite dispersed and remote across North America. Offices are usually small-ish and majority operate cross-functionally and global. How do you propose to implement an appropriate recognition program that we can reward such dispersed teams? By operating on multiple levels, really, Ricardo, we do want to make sure everyone feels like they're part of one company, right, and has that mentality. Reason we often work with companies that have gone through mergers and acquisitions is because now the company feels more disconnected. How do we make sure this other group of 500 people also share our values? So we do want to have that umbrella of company-wide value-based recognitions, but within that, keep what brings the strongest sense of belonging for each location, for each team. Maybe one location has some initiatives that they've had for a long time, and they want to keep recognition badges that reflect their accomplishments there. Maybe it's something new that they're starting that's more local. So we can have different levels. We want to have the overarching recognition efforts, bringing everyone together. But again, we want to have that granularity so that when we ask those folks, what's your sense of belonging? The more we have as far as the granular recognitions, the higher we're likely to score there. But at the same time, someone gets a recognition that they've been at a company for 1 week, and you get people that you haven't even met yet congratulating you. That's also very meaningful. Similarly, if it's your 10-year, very easy to congratulate someone on a 10-year anniversary, even if you don't work with them day to day.
David, we have a question from Lisa coming in a couple minutes ago. She said, do you have any recommendations for recognition programs or software?
Yes, recognize. So that's our software. That's going to be check the box on all the key components that we've gone over today. We've talked about Teams and Slack integrations being within folks' existing workflow. That's gonna, and then just simplicity in making recognition as easy as possible. Those are going to be the things we deliver on. We do have a live walkthrough session coming up end of April that we can share here. Here's going to be the link. You can sign up here. These are going to be smaller sessions that will allow us to go into specific use cases, specific questions. And of course, we can always meet on one-on-ones before then as well. Yeah, Jess just put the link there for that session. Let's see here. I'm gonna read Nicole's question here. It's an interesting question from Nicole here. So, I work in an environment where I try to continually engage with my staff and recognize them for the awesome work they do, but I'm regularly shut down by my manager when she thinks I go overboard. How do you deal with someone like that? When the environment is already toxic, I guess you could say, discourages what they deem as playing favorites. How can you try to fix that when you get minimal support from upper managers or stuck in a middle management role and you feel like your hands are tied? Can't make any real changes to make this space somewhere that people want to be without someone else stomping all over it. We need to get as many people on board as possible to have a successful program. Typically, when we see this response, it's because people look at recognition efforts and they think that they're just kind of sending recognition for the sake of sending recognition. That's not the case. What I would do is I would look at each manager, what are their main priorities? That manager of yours, what are their main priorities? And directly tie your engagement efforts to those goals. Create challenges, show that manager that you can create challenges related to moving the needle on those key metrics that are related to that manager's goals. And then you get every other manager on board by creating more challenges and recognitions that move the needle on things that are top priority for them, right? This is going to create specific immediate impact basically when you start doing this. Over time, with some months, quarter, year, then we move the needle on things like company-wide employee net promoter scores and retention. But by attaching specific challenges to these goals, specific recognitions, you can show improvement right away. Hey, people were doing this 2 times a week before we launched this effort, and now they're doing it 4 times a week. And that's all you'll really have to show then, because the challenge was already tied to a metric that manager thought was valuable. So if you can show that they're doing something 4 times a week and instead of 2 times, they're immediately going to be able to see that value. And try to attach it to things as specific as you can to get people's buy-in right away. And definitely would be something that would be great to dive into more so as far as actually building out what that might look like, Nicole, live demo session one-on-one, but we can definitely assist there. It's the key thing is we're not changing their mindsets. We're just aligning the program with what they already believe in is important and improving in those areas. Any other questions? From some insights here as well. Engage their brain and thinking as to what the increased productivity would be. But producer engagement was high. It's like a pilot program. That's a great, find your allies first, pitch it together. All great tips. Pilot programs can be very useful for this. Due to the nature of engagement and recognition, when you see success in one group, it's naturally going to spill over and more folks at the company are going to want to be a part of it. And there's really just no substitute for seeing the impact it actually has on a group of employees. Some other things to note here on this session on the 28th, we do have a $100 gift card raffle and $1,000 in rewards credit for new customers, which means you can start a monetary program without immediately making a deposit. Not something we've done before. I thought it would be a great way to help people get started easily. And again, you can sign up right here. Beyond that, we have our next webinar session, Tuesday, May 5th, on scaling people ops, systems, rhythms, and structure for remote first growth, with Alex Grandy, our CEO, leading that session. And you can register here. I believe just also sharing it in the chat here. Well, thanks so much for joining, everyone. Anything else to cover, Jess?
No, Nicole just added an additional comment here. And I know Alex mentioned he was wondering what the HR policy is versus the manager's policy.
Yeah, and also just seeing the demo of the what does gamification look like and recognize so people can see what could badges look like, what could the Hall of Fame look like. If you want to show a demo,
I do. That does tend to lead to a lot more questions once we start going through walkthroughs of the actual platform. So I think we'll leave that to the live demo session. Again, that link is right there, so feel free to sign up. If anyone does want a one-on-one walkthrough, let us know. You can book directly with me on my calendar. And so either or before then or join the live demo session, and then that'll give us some time to make sure that we can address all use cases, all questions in depth. I know once we get into things like specific rewards, different locations, there can be a lot of questions that I want to make sure that y'all are able to get those answered. So we can definitely do that in those future sessions. But for now, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Appreciate it.